Nama Guru Nama.
Hey, hey, Dylan, what's going on here? What are you doing?
Oh, hey, hey, Joe. Oh, weird
Yeah,
you asked. Weird you asked. The
what are you
art.
doing?
I'm practicing the art of scrying, and scrying is letting me tap into my unconscious and the unconscious of the cosmos to try and predict the future, much like the world-renowned Michel de Nostradamus did to make his predictions in the 16th century.
Oh, this is gonna be a long fucking episode.
Yeah, motherfuckers. Welcome to the Dylan and Joe podcast. We're your hosts, Dylan
And Joe.
and Joe, and today we're talking about end of the world prophecies, predictions, possibilities. Maybe it already happened, that type of stuff, and we don't know, but we're going to try to figure it out with you guys. So let's get it moving. What's up, Joe? How's it going?
Armageddon, the apocalypse, the end times. We're talking about the closing out of everything to ever have been. The end of Z world, as it were.
Do you remember that
Yep.
YouTube thing that we used to watch in seventh grade with the end of the Z world?
That's why I said it. Yeah, the
It was
end of Z
fucking
world.
funny.
Missiles. Exactly. The end of the world has been a huge topic on people's minds ever since people realized that they existed. They've thought the idea, what if I didn't? And that's basically, I think, what it comes down to.
Yeah, and since most people, weirdly enough, I had this conversation last night, but everybody thinks that they're really the center of the universe to some extent, and if the world's going to
Absolutely.
end, it's going to happen on their time, whether it be the 1200s or 2020. It's oh yeah, this is when it's going to happen because I'm here because of the
You just
human
wrote
ego.
a thesis for the whole episode, and you just did it right now. The end of the world is coming, and it's coming now because I'm here, and I'll probably be around when it happens.
Yep,
Well, let's
exactly.
talk about it. We're going to talk about, the idea of the end of the world. How's it going to happen? Who's predicted it in the past? Who's predicting the future end of the world? When's it going to happen? I mean, we just barely missed December 21st of 2020, which was another particular maybe apocalypse. We barely dodged it. I mean, we're all bunkering. You have a chalice?
Oh yes, this is a chalice. Yeah.
I didn't realize it was a chalice.
So so yeah, so we just narrowly missed the end of the world. Just what 2 days ago. 2 days ago. We'll get more into that shortly about the times that the world has supposed to have ended. One of those being 2 days ago, and before
Been
that
more than
we'll get into
once.
more. But Joe, maybe do we want to touch over end of the world in different religions?
Yeah, sure. I think that basically what we're talking about is that the end of the world is a completely universal idea. It's what we're talking about. Everyone who's existed and understands that they live in the world, the culture around them thinks it's going to end one day because everything we see in our lives is beginning, middle, and end, the cycles of reality. You can't imagine that there isn't a beginning and an end to anything. There's beginning, middle, end. Whether it's your life, the life of a flower, the story, a song, we all think that way. The beginning, middle, end, the world's going to end. And that, no surprise, every single major religion that exists in the world today believes in an end of the world event that is coming in the future. It could be 5 minutes from now. It could be 500 years from now, but every single one believes that there's an end to it. I find that interesting. I mean, it's the one common belief that every major religion has. I mean, they have a lot of differences that make people not believe different things about each other, but they all think it's going to end one day. I don't know any major religion that says it's going to keep going, never going to stop to the end. Like, it's no end.
And one of
Remember,
those things, one of the things that I think is interesting is what exactly does the end of the world mean, which I guess is probably good to touch upon, because there's the end of the physical
what do you mean by
world,
the end of
and
the world? Yeah, it's
yeah,
very
there's the
vague
end of
term.
there's it's very vague. There's the end of the physical world and reality. There's the end of civilization, and there's the end of the world as we know it. And
That's a very good point.
yeah, those are kind of the three things there, because there's like, and religion, I think is when you like go. Let's talk about the Bible for a second. When you go into the last book in the Bible called Genesis.
Oh, the last book is called
At the beginning, sorry, Revelations.
the
Sorry,
beginning is
Genesis.
called Genesis.
Genesis beginning, Revelations is the end. Sorry,
Last
people.
book in the Bible called the prologue.
Exactly. Which is Genesis's theory on the end of the world is probably similar to the other
Then,
religion. Jesus
of course,
fuck.
you mean
I mean,
Revelation.
Revelations is
Yeah.
much like other religions where it's kind of like the end of Fantasia, where it's like it's all going down in
Yeah,
every
the
way,
demons
shape,
will
and
rise
form.
up and the sky will light up and the fires and brimstone
Yep.
and it's definitely gonna be fire. That's a big
Yep.
part of it.
The Bible really is their end is much about the fire. That's kind of their thing. But when you start to go into depth into looking at all the other religions and then other things like that, it really can categorize into three different things. So Joe, what religion we want to get moving with?
Everyone believes all three versions are the end of the world. Like the end of civilization as we know it, the post-apocalypse, all that kind of ideas in science fiction, it's the end of the world as far as the end of the world as we know it, right? The end of civilization or the end of the Earth as a planet or the end of our species, the end of the known universe. It has all different ideas, but here's the main common ground. I'm not going to be in it. So it's the end for me. That's all one thing, right? Well, I'm not there, so it's the end. That's the end. No, it's just, every religion can do it. Judaism, they believe that when the Messiah comes, which they don't believe it hasn't come yet because they don't believe Jesus is Messiah. He's a prophet. But when the Messiah comes, he will come and it will be a he.
Definitely.
They didn't leave the option for it to be a female.
Yep, we weren't there yet.
He will come and he will gather all Jewish people from the diaspora. So all around the world, they'll all come together back to the Holy Land, and then they will hearken forth the rapture, which is the idea that the end of the world will happen, and those that are then the chosen people will ascend into heaven, and those who aren't will rot and die in hell on earth. So pretty similar to Christianity, they believe that Jesus is going to come back. He's going to arrive at the holy mountain in that section of the world. That fight between Jesus, who's Christ, and the rising Antichrist, who is coming now, and the whole word Armageddon, which is now synonymous with the apocalypse of the end of the world, is the name for that battle that will happen on that mountain, where Jesus Christ will actually be wielding weapons and will be fighting and winning, and that's called Armageddon. That battle. That's what Christians believe, and then the rapture will happen. The beast will come. 666, the sign of the Antichrist, will come, and he'll have 100 heads and 1,000 tails and all kinds of fun stuff. Fire and brimstone, that's a Christian one. Islam, pretty similar. Again, all Abrahamic religions have a similar idea. The day of judgment will come, they believe, and Al-Masih, Al-Dajjal, or their version of the Antichrist. It's the Antichrist comes down, and Isa, who is their name for Jesus, descends from the heavens to fight him. It's the same fucking story. I mean, yeah, they don't revere Jesus as much as Christians do, but they still believe he's coming. I mean, Jesus is in the Quran multiple times. He's a major figure. Want to move away a little from that, rather, is into the Eastern religions and other religions like Hinduism. They believe that Kalki, who's the final iteration of Vishnu, and Vishnu is the supreme deity. To harken back to one of our last episodes, there's a great line from Oppenheimer when he says, "How do you feel to be the father of the bomb?" And he says, "I think back to Hindu texts where Vishnu takes on his many-armed form because he is here to destroy the world, and he says, and Vishnu says rather, "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds," and that is who they believe is going to be their demise. He's going to descend from a white horse, and he's going to start. Yeah, it's always
Classic.
going to be. Yeah, also every Judgment Day ends with shit we have now. Like now it'll probably be Jesus has a cell phone or whatever. It can never be
Yeah.
a future idea. It's always like, yeah, then they ride a horse and they have a sword and it's the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's not
so,
coming down. He's not coming down in a Hyundai, but you know, Jesus apparently drove a Hyundai as far as like
down the Pinto
the
or
shit that he was into, you know. Yeah, Pinto.
yeah. Then Buddhism, another similar idea. They believe the teachings will be forgotten in 5,000 years and the world will descend into chaos. Then the next Buddha will rise, rediscover the teaching of Dharma, and the seven suns will destroy the world. The cycle will begin anew. So the common theme here, and obviously the fire and brimstone part, that's bigger in Western religions. But the idea is there is a beginning and an end, and it'll keep happening. In the Western and Abrahamic religions, they believe the end's the end. We all go up, we meet God, straight up, hanging out in a party until the end of time. But
Nice.
a lot of Eastern religions don't believe that the end is the end. It's just the end of this cycle. So the idea is that it's always wrapping it on itself over and over again. And it's just the beginning of a new cycle and the end of an old cycle. You're not going to go up to God and hang out in heaven forever because there's a new world to be made and it's going to keep happening, which is an idea that also is worldwide. The idea of the cyclical nature of reality, or the Ouroboros, as it's called in Latin, but it really means the snake eating its own tail. The idea of the beginning and the end being one thing and it constantly recycling. If a snake ate its own tail, it would die, and that'd be it. But the metaphor of the snake eating its own tail is interesting because it's the idea of this endless cycle of death and life and rebirth. And that symbol of a snake eating its own tail has been found in Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, ancient China. I mean, it's completely, again, like we talked about building megaliths. This is a similar idea that's happened at multiple parts in the world and similar times, and people have all come to conclusion separately, which is
well, and one of the most important ones, which ties into all the fear and hype in the past, 10 years, and the cyclical nature of it is the most important, is the Mayans and the
very good point.
and the Mayan long calendar. Their whole thing is that calendar was created like 1400 BC or something wild, and they created that calendar at a cataclysmic event, like something really big and bad happened, and that calendar was in cycles, and we were in the end of like the fifth cycle or something like that, but it was the end of the calendar as a whole, or it was going to restart again. And yeah, you can count Mayans as religion and civilization at the same time because it was kind of all intertwined, and they believed in the gods.
I
And
believe the Mayans also had that image of the world eater, the snake that eats its own tail. Similar to Viking religions and paganism, it's the world snake that's eating its own tail.
Even more specifically, they 100% exactly. So their temple at Teotihuacan, the way it was built, out of all their other temples, they typically point north, south, east, and west, and that temple itself is a little bit off because it tracks like a certain star system or galaxy or nebula or whatever, and it goes up and down the steps. Probably not, but it goes up and down. You can actually watch it go up and down these steps, and they said it was the snake. And they're wondering if it was a snake because it was almost like contrails on an airplane. Like they might have seen a spaceship come down that was this god, and it had a whole big long thing, but they called it the snake too.
Oh, that's cool.
Literally, the end of the world pyramid in South America is about a snake.
There you go. So yeah, that's just basically to understand the idea that everyone's had this idea in their head, no matter where it's 2020 or if it's the year zero or the year many years BC. The idea of the end of the world is a major part of people's focus on not only their cultures but their religions. Like, we believe in this idea, and it's not stranger to anyone. Everyone's got their own ideas about it.
In my childhood, there were a lot of things that really scared me, and like genuinely scared me. Like, not like I'm kind of scared of something. Like I had severe paranoia about as a young guy, and recently got over. one of them was aliens, one of them was the end of the world, and the one that had a big, and they kind of tying together. But specifically, I learned about Nostradamus from the History Channel when I was like 12 or 13. And it's one of those things that I could not look away from, but I was like, oh shit, this is not good news for me. This is really bad. Um,
It's a weird
and
time where it's more fun to learn about Hitler than about the end of the world. Like, you
exactly,
want to go
yes.
off in the past. History Channel is teaching me about, oh, that was awful then. I'm not worried. Wait a minute. Nostradamus. What?
Yeah. Hitler, you go, wow, that obviously is the worst thing that ever happened to the world at the current day, to this moment. The absolute worst
You
thing.
feel safe on that though. In America in the future, you're like, oh, I'm fine. I'm not gonna worry about
Yeah, but you're like, all right, that already happened. We hopefully have learned that that needs to get stopped before it even happens again. And then the Nostradamus documentary comes on. And you're like, who's this guy? He's born in the 1400s or 1500s, and he predicted 9/11. He predicted the rise of Hitler. He predicted the Hurricane Katrina.
that.
The President
All
Donald
this
Trump.
happened during our lifetime. How interesting. Let's get into it.
Exactly. So I'm like, oh shit, this guy's got it. And then he's predicted the end of
But
the world. Or he predicted it hardcore one time, and then he's kind of got other predictions in the near future for the end of the world as well. It's kind of hard because the same thing. It's a spectrum. The end of the world is. It's a. Are they talking about the end of civilization? The end of fucking all atoms like just disappear and blow up or whatever it is, or the end of like human life only and animal life still lives or something weird, like dinosaurs. Like we get extinct, but the deer still stay.
All right.
Hard to tell. But a little background on Nostradamus. This guy didn't wake up and do this. I mean, he lived a pretty normal. He didn't get into this till he was in his later days, specifically because he was a doctor and he was specifically a plague doctor because he was around at the time of the Black Plague. So he successfully he started to successfully treat patients. And at that time, astrology was just as important or intertwined with medical doctors as well. So it was a little more pseudoscience mixed with actual science. And even then, back then, you would put rose petals in your plague mask that would kill the
I think
virus. So
that's
they
what
didn't
you
really
call
know.
most science pseudoscience for what we know it now. But if it works, it works.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's probably pretty clear that some things did some stuff, but overall,
Right.
you give someone this hibiscus drink and their fever goes away or whatever it is, and they just say that's science, but because they can't see bacteria at that point. But overall, he was a respected plague doctor in France, and then his wife and kids died of the plague.
Oh.
And it ruined his credibility. So.
Oh, because they couldn't save them.
Yes.
Oh, that's.
They figured if the renowned plague doctor's whole family dies of what he's claiming he's the expert on curing, it's not looking good for him.
That is bad PR. That is
pretty
bad.
shit PR for him.
Kid, I don't know if I want to see you as a heart surgery, in the modern day terms.
Yeah, exactly. So he kind of seems like he went on some sort of like vacation hiatus, break, and got more sabbatical, got more into astrology, into other forms to try to. I think it was originally his intention was not to see in the future, it was to treat disease. Like it was like not totally based off this stuff. And I don't really know the details, but he got more into seeing the future. And specifically, if you remember, with the bowl of water, that's how he did it. He had a mixture of astrology, which is a mixture of scrying, it's like crying with an S, which is staring into a bowl of water, sometimes through a flame for hours on end, to have visions based off of your unconscious and the unconscious of the cosmos or something like that, to try to predict stuff. But a lot of people do see stuff in those bowls. It's very much like a crystal ball for people.
That's another universal sign of prophecy, is that all over the world in many different cultures, people believe looking into the flames, either throwing things into it and seeing what comes out, or just in the flames, like the divining ideas of staring into that flame pit, come up with the ideas in your head, which might be prophecies from on high, or might be your own psyche staring back at you in those crackling embers.
Exactly. So it's exactly what it's like. But what? So you mix that, Joe. You mix the water scrying with
Okay.
astrology, and astrology is not just your local 25-year-old girl, telling you what season Capricorn's in at the moment, and
That's
where
how
Mars
I know
is.
it.
Yeah, and what your love life is going to be in 2021 because Saturn is the dominant planet. It's a mix. It is, yeah. That's definitely a huge part of it. But specifically, what like Nostradamus and the Bull of Water mixed with astrology is that the volcano at Pompeii erupted when Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, and this co- comet were aligned, quite like it was a few days ago. Last time that happened, this really, really, really bad thing happened. So we knew that was 800 years ago. So this 800 years, so when the planets line up that again, shit's going down. So it was a mixture of those two things.
It's perfect memory based thing. It's what we're great at doing, recognizing patterns and predicting it in the
Mm-hmm.
future. The
Yep.
same thing. You can teach a pigeon to press a button as soon as there's food there. Even if every time they press the button, the food doesn't come out, it doesn't matter. They believe the food comes out to press the button, so they keep pressing it. And
Yep.
humans are built the same way in that deep part of your brain. We're not that much different. We recognize
Nope.
patterns, and we're good at recognizing how they go and what the benefits and the cons are of it in order to survive. I mean, you can look at these planets aligning. Last time that happened, someone died. Therefore, next time that happens, someone's going to die again. Might not be true, but my brain is wired to think that way, and I'm going to try to prevent that. That's who I am.
Yeah. Yeah, and humans like to put meaning to everything. Every little thing has meaning. Inanimate objects have meaning. This type of stuff. So sometimes there actually really is no meaning to things, and it's just how the
I think it
order of
gives
the
humans more
universe is.
agency. If you believe everything has meaning and you can predict what's going to happen, you feel like you have more control over your universe and what's going on. It's completely natural, I think. I don't think it's odd that people think that way. I think that they're not correct about it, but I definitely understand why people think that they can, understand how the world works. It feels better. If you know how things are going to go down, even if it goes poorly, you feel better than if you have no idea what's going on, then it goes shitty. You go, oh my God, I feel like I'm in the chaos here. But if you
Well,
can, sorry, God.
no, it's okay. I was gonna say, well, then that brings the complete opposite end of the spectrum, which is fate, and some people take comfort in that too. They go, "This bad thing happened to me, but it was meant to be, and I'm gonna take peace in that and move on because that's on my course."
I think that's
So
the
it's the
same
other
thing.
way. Okay,
I don't think
yeah.
they're not actually controlling it. It's the idea that they know why things happen, and the idea everything happens for a reason. If everything happens for a reason, then when shit bad happens, it's not so bad because it's supposed to happen. And when shit good happens, it's supposed to happen, so it's good. So like you can kind of take solace in that, being like, well, everything happens for a reason, and I know why everything's gonna happen, so it's all fine. Even if I get killed, it's fine. It's all happening for a reason. It's like a nice little comfy pillow where you're like,
Yep.
fine. Even if
Yep.
it's shitty, I know why it's shitty, therefore it's a little less bad. It's like dying from a disease no one knows what it is, and then predicting that your son and your wife won't die. Kind of something like that, to wrap it back into Nostradamus.
Yep, exactly. And exactly. So with Nostradamus, though, he had a lot of predictions, and a lot of them were right. Again, like I said, he he did these predictions in quintets or four verses of poems at a time, so you could interpret them a little differently. Like the new city could have been New York City when he predicted 9/11, or it could have been, I think, Naples, which also means new city. But I think his, like, the one that everyone's talking about was July 4th, 1999. Actually, was his first end of the world prediction, which
Okay.
didn't. I don't remember anything happen on that day. Do you?
Yeah,
Anything at all?
I think I saw fireworks that day, if I remember
Oh
clearly.
yeah, true. That's a
I
good point.
can't remember much. I might have been at the Esplanade in Boston watching the Boston Pops go off and having the fireworks go off. I think I remember that.
Yeah, it could have been something like that. Maybe that was the end of that, of what maybe this is all a dream from then on. I don't know, um, but yeah. So that was his first. He has a couple more predictions. I don't in the future for like the year 3000 something or whatever it is, but
Well,
that
can
was
you run
him.
down what the predictions were though? Because I'm glad that you said that they were in poems. I didn't even know that fact of it. I thought that he basically was like a public speaker. So
No.
let's not just touch on that and leave. Like, why did he predict 9/11, Hitler? I mean, couldn't you find other things between the year 1500 and now that he could have been predicting? Even if he was correct, he might have found another despot or another major world tragedy that could have happened, maybe he gets to those instead of the ones that happened after. It's like predicting
Yeah.
the Patriots are going to win next week, and then 5 years from now the Patriots win. And I go, I was talking about that time. I could have been talking about it next week.
Yeah, so he like I mentioned, he had 942 poetic quatrains predicting future events. So in those 900 in that book, and then there's apparently a lost book as well that they didn't record on Google yet. But so that might double that number of predictions that he had. And things that he predicted, like I mentioned, he did the he predicted 9/11, claims World War III is going to happen in some sort of year. He predicted that.
Like, what did he say? He didn't say it's going to be 9/11 in a couple of years.
Let's see exactly what he said. He talked about two silver birds.
Okay.
It was like that. It was like two silver birds will strike these something like that.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear. That's interesting because at least it makes more sense to what he's saying rather than saying, "Hey, in 1,000 or in 500 years, Al Qaeda members funded by Saudi Arabia are going to hijack a U.S. Airways Flight 9, whatever." Like, he didn't say that. He said, it's poetic.
He said this.
Vague,
yeah,
vague.
exactly. So I didn't pull up this one, but like he predicted the rise of Hitler, and it was like one letter off. So his poems talked about Hister, Hister.
Oh, you're so close to nailing it.
So close. But like one example, like it has here, it's a passage they wrote: "The blood of the just will be lacking in London. Burnt up in the fire of '66, the ancient lady will topple from her high place. Many of the same sect will be killed." And on September 2nd, 1666, a small bakery fire on Pudding Lane in London kickstarted a vicious inferno that ravaged the city for 3 days. The phrase "blood of the just" is believed to refer to the elimination of the millions of flea-carrying rats that spread the Black Death. That deadly plague died out during the Great Fire. The Great Fire basically ended that plague. So his quatrain, that quatrain was about that fire that died, that killed off the plague. So each thing it's very encryptic, but it spreads that message. So as far as 9/11 goes, so I got Hitler's right here actually. So he wrote, "From the depths of the west of Europe, a young child will be born of poor people. He who by his tongue will seduce a great troop. His fame will increase towards the realm of the east." He continued another verse: "Beasts ferocious with hunger will cross the rivers. The greater part of the battlefield will be great against Hister. Into a cage of iron will the great be one drawn when the child of Germany observes nothing." And he wrote that. So, and Hitler was born to poor parents in 1889 in Western Europe and used public speaking skills to assemble support the Nazi Party after World War I. He also allied with Japan or the East in the Second World War. So it's.
I thought they would be saying that Hitler or Hister is from the East because he's from the Eastlands, east of the Rhine River. And if they're going to say that someone's going to rise from the East, I don't think that Nostradamus will be talking about Japan. Because
they did. You're right. They said, while many believe Hister to be a misspelling, it's also an old name for the Danube River in Austria. And Hitler was born just a few miles from that river.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Connect the dot.
Yep, exactly. But he, again, as mentioned, predicted that the world would end in 1999, and it didn't. And he's predicted that humans will eventually be able to speak to animals and some other weird stuff. But
Wild Thornberry. Donnie.
Great
we'll
show.
Donnie up on the video so people can see Donnie.
Yeah, we need Donnie. We always need some Donnie in our lives. It's fucking awesome.
Not a problem.
Love that guy.
Yeah, that's interesting though. Nostradamus, do you know how he died? Did he predict his own death? That would be kind of interesting, right?
Good question. I don't know off the top of my head if he predicted his own death. That's something we can pull up and throw a little fact up here if he did or didn't.
That would really help me out on getting on board with the predictions if he could predict his own death. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good one.
You would think.
I'm gonna blow my head off on April 16th, 1605. He did. I couldn't believe it.
I'm I can see the future. I'm gonna die in 5 minutes as soon as I finish loading this revolver. I'm a clairvoyant.
That's so good. So
Thomas, in approximately X hours, the sun will rise on planet Earth. And if it doesn't, then you know I'm a liar.
yep.
But if it does, you have to admit I fucking guessed it. You have to admit it. I was right. The sun will rise tomorrow on Christmas Eve morning.
See, I told you so. I know what I'm doing.
Isn't that what all this shit is? All the predictions? It's the ultimate I told you so. It's betting so hard on I told you so. Because that's all you get.
Hard.
And that's all you get. If you guess the end of the world correctly, you don't get anything besides the I told you so. Because the world still ends and everything sucks and everyone it's all over. But the only thing you get to say is, well, I did get the I told you so. I did guess it right.
And you don't even get you didn't get money. Like it's like this guy, he was a doctor. He did this for fun. Like there's no like this, I'm gonna make a career out of this. It's like, nah, he just did this and that's what made him famous, not his actual job.
I think that's an interesting fact about the Armageddon too, or the apocalypse, is that eventually someone who guesses it is gonna be right. Like True. Everyone's all betting on they're the one who guessed it right. And one day someone will say it'll be this and then it'll be right. And then only looking back could you say, hey, that person they actually guessed it. It really was
they're the ones. Yep. They were someone they whatever
not happened yet. And
yeah. So let's cover a couple of people real quick and then we'll get into how it might end. What's the possible methods and some other crazy shit that we've pulled up too.
I'm starting my journey to find the real Nostradamus by traveling to the south of France, to the town in Provence where Nostradamus wrote his prophecies. The more I think about the man, the more intrigued I become. Other great prophets through history seem to have made only general predictions about the people and the times they were living in. Nostradamus is the only one to make predictions that stretch across centuries and which seem to foretell events with such precision.
The next person I've got on my list that I've known about for a while, you've seen her on the front of like creepy newspapers and stuff like that, or Joe mentioned Hansel and Gretel. She's very much like the lady in the woods. I'm not sure 100% her situation, but her name is Baba Vanga, also known as the blind mystic Nostradamus of the Balkans, Bulgarian clairvoyant prophetess, born in 1911. That's the best way to describe Baba Vanga. So she's.
I wonder if she ever made it up to Petrodava Dacia, that old fort where the monolith is back in the east of Europe.
Good call. Yeah. I wonder if she did. That would be something.
Call back to the monolith.
Yep, she's been brought back. Maybe that's her. Who knows? But anyway, she died in 1996. And the cool thing about her compared to Nostradamus is 8 out of 10 of her predictions have actually happened.
All right. That's interesting to me. I've never heard of this person.
Yep. She thinks Armageddon is going to be in the year 5057. We got a ways to go.
It's a solid guess because it's really hard to be disproven for a while.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the problem. Don't say it's tomorrow. Say it's 1,000 years from now. Then you can die correct.
Exactly. So you don't like make a prediction that it's going to happen in a year and then you're wrong and then your credibility is ruined forever. You go, no, it's going to be like 16,000, 1,500, 500. And you go,
you just wait.
We'll find out.
You just wait. I'll say I told you so from beyond the grave.
Also predicted 9/11, the Japanese tsunami in 2004.
Shocker.
And that's all I wrote down. But she is blind. She lives in Bulgaria, and she makes predictions at the end of times.
She's lost her first sight, but she's been gifted with second sight into the beyond.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best way to describe her. Let's pull up a few more of her predictions.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what she got right, because again, she didn't say 9/11 is going to happen. because that would be amazing if he said that. Everyone would believe her immediately. In the past, it would be amazing if anyone said, "Hey, by the way, there's going to be this guy named Adolf Hitler from Austria who's going to start the Third Reich in Germany." If Nostradamus said that, it would be mind-blowing now. You'd be like, he said those actual words. He said the future, but he didn't say the future, did he? He did what he's best at besides being a doctor, apparently. He did astrology, say a bunch of vague terms that could be construed as being realistic in the future. You will meet someone new this week. You'll have ups and downs. You're a Pisces. You're going to have an interesting day today. It just seems like you can paint the walls with ideas, and only afterwards can you say, "Oh, look at that. Look, see, he painted that right there." It's like, he painted the whole fucking Sistine Chapel. You didn't notice all the other shit he said? He said that. Like, if you can see the future, tell me what the fuck's going to happen. There's going to be something called nuclear warheads in the future. You don't know what that is now, but I'll tell you that. No, it's there's going to be fiery birds from the sky, and there's going to be ravens. Yeah, like we have now. You're a fucking genius. Sorry.
So Baba Vanga said right around now we should find the cure for cancer. She said that's cool.
That's a good one. I like that one. That's like
Vladimir Putin will survive an assassination attempt next year, according to this. Hope Google doesn't take us down. We're not saying that. We're just saying this is what the Baba Vanga said is going on. Not us. We are not, nothing to do with this. Some other bad things about like things in Europe. And
she lives.
Oh yeah, here's my favorite prediction. You ready for this one? The world will suffer from a lot of cataclysms and great disasters.
Has that paid off?
That's 8 out of 10. She's right.
That is her best prediction. That is paid off probably 100 times.
Wait, even better. Difficult times will come, and people no, it gets better. It gets better. Difficult times will come, and people will be divided by their faith.
Really? How the fuck would she know that unless she can see the future? Now I'm starting to believe it.
This is great. Oh, and a dragon would overcome humanity in 2021. So that's probably China, though. That's China. That's what that means. That means it's China.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That's interesting. A dragon.
Yep. A strong dragon will seize humanity, and 3 giants will unite, and some people will have red money. She sees the numbers 100, 5, and many zeros.
And she's not a fortune cookie, right? Because it's starting to sound like she might be.
Nope, she isn't.
Lucky numbers are.
Yeah.
I see cataclysmic events in the future. Humans will continue to be divided and war with each other.
Yep. And
it doesn't take a futurist to understand that might be what happens. It's like saying, I believe people will continue to use oxygen constantly. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. Yep. No, I know. I hear you. It's very much the same. But I did pull up another list about actually
mine, man.
Are these that fun? Nah, not really. Besides, an artificial sun illuminates the dark side of the Earth in 2100. And a new energy source, aka thermonuclear, will be sun in the box, guys. 2028, according to, I think this is actually Nostradamus. This one pulled up, but
Nostradamus said artificial sun.
Yes.
That's fucking wild if he said that.
Artificial sun. Yep.
I doubt he said it.
He said it.
I bet he said something else. That sounds like it now.
Look, I just watched a documentary today on.
I bet he said there will be an artificial sun. I don't think people use the word artificial in the 1600s because there
was anything artificial.
I mean, the word robot was first said around that time period. It had to do with in Eastern Europe, it's what they called like serfs, people who just like worked for a living and they didn't own anything. They called them robots. So now we call them robots. So they could look at the 1600s and be like, he called him a robot. He knew about the robots. He knows about iPhones. Like, no. The word meant something different then. I can't imagine they said artificial sun and they meant anything besides some kind of second sun or whatever. I mean, he didn't mean that they have a synthetic version of a star. I mean, most people didn't even realize what a star was. There was the sun and there were stars. They're different, but they're not different. We know that now because we know shit now.
We do, but the Mayans knew shit too, man. I mean, they were the time when Europe was in the Dark Ages. The Mayans were fucking rocking shit. You know, like Europeans, like we're still like,
luckily.
Yeah, but like I said, the Mayans like were thriving, and they had technological advances and crazy math and stuff. When the Europeans were like fucking hitting shit with sticks, you know, like it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, Europe went way backwards as far as scientific thought as we would see it today. It's like we talked about in the past. It's a huge dip in the Dark Ages. What they called the Dark Ages now. They didn't call it the Dark Ages when they were in it. They called it life cycle.
Exactly.
Only now we go, oh yeah, people became like 100 years backwards in their thoughts in that time period. And
yeah, we don't.
The Mayans, they didn't have the same problem. They were still advancing while Europe was reverting because of religion and pandemics and a lot of circumstances there.
Gregory Rasputin, who's 400 years after Nostradamus and about and I mean realistically was alive at the same time as Baba Vanga was.
He was, and also he's a very famous figure in history, not just because of his predictions or his claims to his mysticism. He is the person who weaseled his way into the royal family of Russia. I mean, this guy came
Romanov,
from being
the Romanov
he came from
dynasty.
A vagabond priest. He was basically a hobo who was preaching, living out in the swamps, and he worked his way from being the equivalent of what we're talking about today, a homeless guy holding up the sign, "The end of the world is near, the end is nigh, piss my pants." He went from that to maybe banging the queen and becoming a huge political figure. And
everyone else. He was like, the chicks were all, dude, that guy was the sex symbol of Russia in the early 1900s. And you look, and we'll pull his picture. We're going to pull his picture up right here for you guys. And he was the fucking hottest dude in Russia in the mid-teens in 1900s. You can see
why by this photo.
You can see why, but he couldn't get him off him if he tried, including, again, the Tsarina of Russia. Well, it's pretty clear that they were banging.
Their son, their son had hemophilia.
Yeah.
And was super ill with all kinds of genetic diseases that you get when you fuck your cousins and then you make kids as a family. And Rasputin was only one of the people who knew how to calm them down. Rasputin got to be top 10 best hucksters of all time, man. I mean, gotta be. He went from being like a panhandler on the street and selling lies to strangers that he might have believed in, and then he sold lies to a king and queen, and then to the world. And he was killed, but I mean, what a run. I mean, to make it that far. You imagine the guy on the side of the street telling you that you have to repent and give you one of those pamphlets, and then he becomes a White House representative. I mean, that's a big jump.
It's a big
mover and shaker.
It's a big deal. And they used, his ability to foresee into the future or give predictions type of thing. He was the czar's or their best advisor while he was banging the wife and treating the kid for hemophilia and all those things. It was just totally crazy, and then got them all fucking killed.
Don't forget,
in like a terrible situation in a basement. And then on top of that, he
murdered the whole Romanov family. He slunk out the back door.
But they killed him too. He died. They tried to kill him, I think, 2 or 3 times. They poisoned him in his drink, and then he said, "I'm out of here," and he left. And they shot him a lot, and he still didn't die.
Don't bullshit a bullshitter, and Rasputin was the #1 bullshitter. You can't poison that guy. You gotta have to chase him down and shoot him to death.
Yeah, but he may not have been a bullshitter. Who knows? These people are onto something. But also, he was. The thing is, he made
magic. He was still a bullshitter. He lied constantly. Even when he used his magic and it worked out, other times when he didn't do that, he was lying. I mean, he lied to the queen. He lied to the king. He tried to like make this little web of shit going in there. Even if he is magic and can predict the future, he still lied all the fucking time. Like
so the bottom line is he had something going on. He was right sometimes, but he did take his shit web with him in there and do things which made him, whether he was a liar or gave them some good advice in some ways or not, He was the most dangerous thing to ever happen to that part of Russia before World War II, and that's a
Absolutely.
fact. And he is, to this day, borderline responsible for the reason that that was the last dynasty in Russia ever.
Yeah.
It's gone. No
Yeah.
more. It's over.
It's nuts.
That was it.
Also,
And they all died by execution. They were executed in a fucking basement because this dude.
yeah,
I mean, like it's bad.
prisoners of war. That was the royal family. Was
Yes,
executed
they
that
were
way.
treated like them. They were brought from place to place to place, and then they were brought in the basement. Like, all right, we're. Then they all got killed. It was such a sad story.
Wild. Also,
Terrible.
Rasputin, I think he's fucking awesome. Like, what a cool historical character. But he seems the equivalent of like a modern day like guru or like yoga guy who comes into this powerful rich man's house. His son is sick. He comes in. He does meditation. He gives the wife crystals. He fucks the wife when you're at work, and then she goes, "Who's right, you're wrong." I mean, he's a fucking yoga guy. But he got so powerful that he was, changing the history of Russia forever. But to me, that's who Rasputin is. I mean, respect Rasputin, but he didn't deserve the credit he got. He's a fucking huckster for life and very good at it. So kudos, Rasputin.
God, that's funny. So those are my three famous people, but there's plenty of other people. And if you guys walk yourself down the web of conspiracy, truth seer, YouTube
And
or
please
cable
do.
network predictions, you get people today who think that they're these people. They really do. Like they think they're the next Jesus. Those people show up all over the place.
Oh yeah, dime a dozen.
Dime a dozen. They're always there. The next coming of Christ. I mean, this shit's always going down. It's pretty wild. But today's day, they just the credibility is just not there. Like people from the future, like that kid, they're always out there trying to figure it all out when no one really knows. But we do know a couple things. You left us on a note that said,
yeah. So you're gonna say about how the most recent predictions of the end of the world have
yeah, and
not
you're gonna
been
go over
far
the.
away.
Mhm.
They happen every day. So what we were talking before is the idea of predicting the future. I mean, Nostradamus, he guessed 9/11 and Hitler. Yaga Benga, she predicted 9/11 and Hitler. And I guess everyone predicted 9/11 and Hitler, two things that are really important to American culture in the year 2020. But there's been so many predictions of the end times that it's almost the same as predicting that, like I said before, the sun's going to come tomorrow. I mean, there is literally hundreds and hundreds and thousands of them to go through. I just clicked and try to get a list of each century who guessed it and how well it worked out. So 70 CE, the uprising of the Jewish people against the Romans had this idea that we're going to start changing the world. I mean, Jesus has been dead for 40 years. Here it comes. It's Armageddon now. They rise up and they actually were so convinced that the Jewish people started minting coins with the phrase Israel is redeemed, saying that like, well, this is it. I mean, obviously Jesus is gone. The Jews are coming back. The Romans are out. Get to the mountain. It's Armageddon now. That was in the year 70. In the year 1000, the Pope, along with the Roman Catholic Church, declared this year will be the end of the world. Much like in the year 1999, the year 999, they said, this is the end. Nice round number.
Based on the fact that the number 999 is really the year 52,999,000,000, or however old the Earth actually is. It's like, no, they just think like, all right, this is it, guys. It's like, do you realize that 999 is like, why not fucking 10,000? Like, it doesn't matter. Like,
It doesn't matter.
The Earth has been here so much longer than since Jesus was born. Like, there's a whole bunch of shit that happened before that. 40,000 years of known history of humans before the year 999. Like, and then we just one day said, we're going to start counting again now at the birth of this guy.
Yeah. So that wasn't just people thinking it, which if that happened now, much like it happened in 1999, people would think it's the end of the world. But that was the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church. They all said it. Imagine if the Pope said, it's for sure the end of the world this year, for sure. People would be way more panicked because that's the Pope. He's supposed to be the voice of God.
True.
So then 284 years later, now we're in 1284, Pope Innocent, another Pope. He says The world is going to end 66 years later. Number of the Beast.
Classic.
Mark of the Beast, Revelations. Classic.
Classic move. Yep.
Not actually in the Bible at all, but Roman Nero. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He predicts that 660 years after the rise of Islam, the world will end, which would make it the year 1284. What good math on that? So the exact number of the beast until now in the world. Unfortunately, he was not right either. French alchemist Arnaldus de Villanova, which sounds like Newhouse, predicts the Antichrist will come this year, the year 1368. Wrong again. In 1600, Martin Luther, who is super famous in religion because he's the guy who started the Protestant Reformation. All the Protestant religions have all been started with his Protestant papers. He was a professor and a priest, and he sparked the Protestant Revolution, saying that the world will end no later than 1600 CE, and I know that. Wrong again, motherfucker. In the year 1658, Christopher Columbus, fan favorite, claimed that the world was created in 5,343 BC. Don't know how he got that number, but I know why he did. And it would last 7,000 years. So if you do the math on that, it'll end this year, 1658. So the world will end this year. Makes sense. 7,000 years, nice round number. It was created in 5343. I don't know why that, but there you go. Anyways,
well, it's too bad he didn't sail the Santa Maria right off the face of the earth, which existed back then because it was a square box. Because he raped and pillaged all those fucking poor people. Wore their bones on his necklace. Just want to remind everyone how much of a piece of shit he was.
Absolutely, he was wrong
Classic
about more than
piece
one
of shit.
thing. But again,
a class 1 piece of shit. Class 1.
Ranked top tier. Piece
class
of shit.
1, also class A, same thing. Definitely a class 1.
Hey, another thing he's wrong about. Wrong again. 1792, the Shakers, a Christian sect of England, this is now closer to where we are, claims that the world will for sure end this year in 1792. 300 years after Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but not as close as he guessed that. Anyways, were they right? Don't think so. Harriet Livermore, the year is 1843, another 100 years later. A famous female preacher, which is very rare for the time. And she said that Armageddon will for sure come this year. Didn't happen. So she looked back into herself and she decided it's going to happen in 1847. I was wrong about 1843, but 1847 is it for real. Guess what? Wrong again. 1910.
I have a feeling, though, it'll end. I have a feeling. Trust me. It's a feeling I have.
1910, 2 years after Venga, her name again?
Baba Venga. She was born 1911. Don't get confused.
So 1910, 1 year before the birth of Baba Venga, Camille Flammarion claims the coming of Halley's Comet in 1910 will snuff out all life on the planet and continues to sell comet pills, which are pills that you take so you're immune to the toxic gases of the comet.
It just makes sense. Take the pills, guys.
In 1967, we have to do a whole episode on this. Jim Jones, the founder of the cult, the People's
Motherfucker.
Temple,
Yep.
Nuclear Holocaust will happen in 1967. This year is going to happen. Wrong again, but everyone who you're leading your congregation will die from you. You're Armageddon. For all those people and those kids and families. Fuck you, Jim Jones. You're up there with Columbus, right up here.
Guys, stay posted for cults because that's up probably up next. We got this. Cults are very interesting. Jim Jones, class 1 piece of shit. Class 1. Class 1 piece of shit.
Speaking of cults, 2 years later, Charles Manson, Helter Skelter, end of the world. Here we go again. Wrong again, Charlie. And I mean, like I said, on the list of times I see people predict this, I mean, I skipped over about 200 to 300 of them. The main thing I'm trying to say is that it happens every single fucking, not only century, every year. People say, this is it. This is the end. So maybe you're right. Someone's going to be right one time, but it's not you. You're wrong. It's not the end of the world. You're just going to die. It's not all the end for everybody, just you. Sorry, it's over. The most recent one that I know about, I lived through this one. Beyond the whole 2012 Mayan thing was Harold Camping, an evangelical preacher who predicted Armageddon and the rapture would happen in the year 1994 with a large following of, I think, over 100,000 people. And he said it was in 94. And then he had to speak to God again, and he realized it was in 95. And then he had to really actually call God again and say, I must have missed that, because now it's going to be in May 21st, 2011. Wrong again. You changed it to October 11. Wrong again. You fucking old liar. You're wrong again. And guess what? He died in December 2013 after having a stroke. So yeah, your world's over. 2 years after you predicted it,
God.
and the fourth time you predicted it. Anyways, my whole point is this shit's gonna keep happening. I'm gonna predict it right now. The world ends in 2021 because an asteroid hits us, and that's all over. You think I'm wrong? Check in next year where I talk to Jesus again, and he tells me I misheard the call. Liar, fucking delusional liars. I hate it. They make money off it. You're selling comet pills. It's going to end. Here comes the comet pills. I mean, we didn't really get into doomsday prepping, but the amount of money that's been spent on underground bunkers and canned food, it's got to be. It's a separate economy.
Even better than than underground bunkers and canned food is the fact that there were hundreds of people in China on December 20th, 2012, who purchased doomsday balls for thousands of dollars that could fit up to like 8 people, and they sat in those things because someone said, get inside the steel ball that we made for the doomsday, because this is what's going to happen, and then the earth is going to blow up, but it's a ball, so you might go flying in the air for thousands of miles, but you'll land, and it'll just, wherever you go, and then you open it up in a couple weeks and you're out and you're good. It's got canned food and a bunch of shit in there, and you can whatever it is, and people actually
what for a week, and then what? That's the doomsday thing for me always. And then you land in your ball, you have canned food for a week, and then what? Then you starve to death over a 3-week period, and your life's even worse. Why not go out in the fire? Get hit with the fucking axe in your head. Why would you want to starve to death and kill your family to survive, or you just die in Armageddon? Doomsday prepping is because you have to have some kind of like revitalization. It's like buying enough food for a blizzard. You know, when the blizzard's over, we're going to shovel the snow out and we're going to be back to normal. In Armageddon, you can have 100 cans of beans. It's not coming back. You're prolonging the inevitable, which is you're going to die.
Yeah. The answer to that is homesteading. So you are 100% sustainable is the only solution. Teach a man to fish situation instead of giving a fish to solve hunger. So, but people actually, and let's get a picture of a doomsday ball. People actually sat in these things for over 24 hours, dude. And they waited for the world to end, and it didn't. Like they're like, all right, guys, we're getting in. Let's get in. Come on, kids. And they sat in there and played cards or fucking Pokemon Go or whatever they did.
I hope they did something. It reminds me of your thing where it's like you're kind of upset that you're wrong about it, but you're mostly happy you have to go to work, even though the world's not over, you know?
Yeah.
You have to have bought that ball, and when you're, I hope they're playing cards. I imagine they're all holding hands and squinting their eyes like they're about to get shot in the head for 24 hours. And then when it's over,
I think they did.
The good news is you're not dead, and the bad news is you just spent the mortgage payment on a sci-fi device that you now have to leave in the field somewhere.
Fucking insane. So, exactly. So, so that happens. Doomsday preppers are always a thing, and the thing is, a lot of times that can add some comfort, except for that movie with Fred Flintstone, that was really made it scary.
10
John
Cloverfield
Goodman.
Yeah, I guessed it before you said his name.
That's what he goes by. He goes by Fred Flintstone. That's reality, not that this is a idea where you can just play Xbox for a couple weeks. It's like, no, you got a fucked up dude who's hyper prepared, type A times 10, who controls you and then wants to eat you. December 21st, 2012. I was 21. And I was basically, I knew of that date a year in advance, that was the end of the world. And
Harold Camping this is all in 2011. So he didn't even guess the Mayan one. He was a year too early.
Oh, wow.
So that was mostly Christian evangelical. I don't know how he came up with that, some kind of crazy math in his own head. But you're speaking of the maybe the most famous prediction in our lifetime, which was in 2012 is going to be the end of the world, the Mayan calendar.
End of the Mayan calendar, the end of the Mayan long calendar, and again they had cyclical dates, and they basically had like gears overlapping each other that all of them spun at the same time to eventually, and that was the end of the fifth cycle, which is the end of the whole cycle. So
Gotcha.
and again, the beginning of the cycle was a cataclysmic, terrible event. I don't remember what it was, but they basically, it was pretty clear that something bad was going to happen on that day, or not. It was going to be a change in dimensions, a change in something. But anyways, I was shitting my pants.
I'm not sure, but like, yeah, like I said, as far as I know, it was basically that people have found that to be the end of the calendar. And from what they knew about the history of Mayan cyclical calendars, there's cataclysms and rebirths, but no part of the calendar, as far as I know, said, and at this point, the world will end and everyone will die. It was just at the end of the calendar.
Speculation.
They could have planned for that, or they could have said, well, if you made a calendar for the year 3000, Dylan, I wouldn't think that you were thinking the year was dead. It just, you'll make one for 3020 when it happens. It was the last one they happened to make, as far as I know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. And it was, and again, it was a cycle, so it was just going to start from the beginning again. It wasn't going to just end. It was just going to go, okay, now we go back to day one, and then just move on like this. So so that day I was fucking terrified. I mean, I just got off an airplane, and I think I might have not even remembered what day it was. I was so hungover.
Yeah, this is in the monolith episode, maybe. Are you telling the story?
Oh yeah, I was. Yeah, yep, totally. Yeah, I was so hungover and so tired.
I definitely remember you talking.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that was that. I got through that, and then I was like December 22nd. I was like, all right, cool. I can move on with this. But the most recent one was obviously 2 days ago, and it was the only reason that people thought that maybe it would be 2020 is because the year is shitty. But on top of that is the Mayan calendar is in relation to the atomic calendar or clock, whatever you want to call it. They run side by side. Is 0.0002 days off. So very small, like, so if you're 1 day off, that over 1 year, it moves 300 spots or whatever.
Yeah, even that slight of a difference, it makes a huge difference. I mean, there's a great story about the Russian team in the Olympics in the early 1900s. They showed up a week late for the Olympics because they were still going off of the calendar from 50 years ago.
Fucking so, like, great.
It makes a big difference. The little small things like that, if over a period of time, you'd be way off.
Oh, that's just fucking awesome. That's so funny. So I didn't know that. The whole fact that the Mayan calendar is, no one knows, because the atomic clock, they said, has been, actually it sounds like the Mayan clock is the one that's right, because the atomic clock on that fourth decimal, they said they rounded down. So the Mayans were probably dead dick on. But the difference between the two calendars or clocks or whatever it is, with especially with like daylight savings, someone calculated would be 2020 instead of 2012. So to this one,
nice round number. 2020 is nicer. If I was writing a movie, I'd say 2020. I wouldn't say 2012.
Right. The winter equinox of 2020, and the world blows up. So that's those are the predictions of like the up until today of what we knew in near time for the return of, and especially because the Christmas star was there, which is what Jesus saw. It's the Mars and Jupiter and Saturn touching, being in line, and they're like, this is totally it. That's the star that they saw when Jesus, and he's gonna come back and do his thing, and it just didn't happen. So
what are you gonna do? It's worth the shot. The advice you had for the whole thing is perfect, because the end of the world is so subjective. But even if we mean the end of civilization, the end of the universe, like I said before, we only mean one thing. When are we going to be gone? We're the ones who matter. So we think of it as the end of humanity. Even if all humans died tomorrow, that'd be the end of the world. As far as we are concerned, I don't care about the squirrels and the foxes. If every human who's ever existing in the world dies tomorrow, that's the end of the world for me. But it's important to remember and zoom out a little bit, like you were coming up with. It's all subjective what the end of the world is in that way. I mean, there's been 5 major extinction events in the history of the planet, and they have been massive. Beyond anything you can imagine, the level of death and destruction of any species on the planet. I mean, These extinction events are so big that the one that's famous is the smallest one. It's fucking crazy. 450 million years ago, 70% of all species on the planet all died due to global warming. They believe that it was because so many volcanoes erupted in the same period of time that the greenhouse effect was so severe that almost all life on the earth died. 360 million years ago, so about 100 million years later, again, 70% of all species on the planet died. Didn't just die that day, they went completely extinct. It might have lasted 20 million years, a period of every species on the planet dying out and becoming non-existent. Then 100 million years after that, the Permian extinction happened. The Permian explosion is a period of history of life where the most species that have ever existed on Earth all existed at the same time, and it was within a small period of time, a couple million years. The most species, again, all dead. About 90 to 95% of every living species on the planet, like plants, animals, whatever, all died. And then the Earth kept going. The Triassic extinction happened later than that. At the end of that, so many species died, about 75%, that the only species that were tending to survive were a new thing on the planet, were these giant lizards that were the only species that were able, or only type of species that were able to survive, and those were called dinosaurs. So after that giant extinction comes the period where dinosaurs start to rule the Earth. And then 65 million years ago, big comet hits, and 50% of all the species on Earth all die, including every major dinosaur species that we know about. Only some survive. And that was the last time it happened. And only half of the species on Earth died. I mean, comparatively, that's not even that bad, what we used to have. And that's, ancient past times of mythical dragons and beasts. That's the dinosaur time. So my point is that the end of the world is completely subjective. Every species on Earth has gone extinct almost completely 5 times on the planet. And what happens? We all kill ourselves and it's all over. It seems kind of like, let's think about this a little bit objectively outside ourselves. Is it the end of the world if we all die? It's happened a lot of times, much more severely.
Yeah, it'll move on. It's like the if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, did it fall? Is that it?
Did it make a sound?
Did it make
Did it fall? Well, you said it did.
Did it fall? Did it make a sound, type of thing?
Yeah, the Earth will keep spinning whether we're here or not. And even if the Earth is a giant rock of fire, it'll keep spinning.
So that brings us into the ways this may or may not happen. And the same thing is there could be a mysterious plague that only affects humans that eliminates 100% of human life on Earth, and the fucking dogs, cats, deer, foxes, alligators, where the fuck don't give a shit and move on with their lives. And the Earth is now just full of semi-intelligent life. But human beings will think this is a really big deal, and they'll all be really sad and like very, very dramatic about it.
Classic humans only thinking about themselves.
Yeah, being dramatic about the fact that all humans are gone now and the planet's just a bunch of alligators and whatever. Yeah.
Wah, fucking wah.
So, so yeah, that's one thing. Asteroid could hit us, but again, it didn't blow up the Earth. It just made made it uninhabitable, and initially tens and hundreds of millions will die in the initial blast, and there'll be some sort of fallout, just like a nuclear bomb. And
yeah, like I said, that's the most famous example of the extinction of all species. It actually killed less than any other major extinction event. It only killed 50% of the species on Earth, which means that it was the least deadly of all cataclysms, and it's the most famous one that killed the most species we know about. But it's happened 4 times before that, and it was much more devastating.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I mean, there's a part of human history that people have understood through like archaeology and anthropology, that they believe that at one point there was only 10,000 humans on the Earth altogether. So that means if those 10,000 people had died, we would have gone extinct in that time period. But luckily we blew up and started to thrive again. But that's just how close you can come to being extinct, is that this is only, whatever, 30, 20,000 years ago. Sooner than that, before the Ice Age, they were so few humans that we could have been extinct just as easy as any of those other species. But luckily for us, they kept getting it on for us there.
Getting it on for us there, and just eating, packing up in the caves and eating macaroni and cheese and just carrying on, you know? Getting
So that
through those
means
hard
that
times.
anyone who's ever existed is an ancestor of those 10,000 people, because we wouldn't be here otherwise.
Yeah, it's
Thanks
pretty
for not giving up.
pretty crazy. And so the next thing, so I spent my night watching a movie called Threads. And it's probably anybody who's ever lived through the 80s and was like alive is familiar with this movie, but for me it was new, but it kept telling me to watch it because it's critically the scariest or most horrifying movie of all time ever made.
Ooh, got my
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah, it got my interest too, and I was like, wow, that's crazy, because I've seen some scary movies, and some horrifying movies too. For example, like Schindler's List is a very horrifying movie, but as far as scary and making you jump out of your pants, it's not doing that. But it's a horrifying movie. This is a horrifying movie, less than a scary movie. It came out in 1984, and one of the reviews from Rotten Tomatoes is that this is the only film I have been really and truly scared and indeed horrified by, in an intense and sustained way. And it outlines so clearly nuclear war and how it would and will happen, or not will, but how it could happen, in the most realistic way ever. And then it starts off with like follows this girl who's pregnant and young and whatever it is, and then the U.S. and Iran are having a problem, and Russia's involved there, and Iran, U.S. and Russia are fighting in Iran, and then a nuclear submarine from the U.S. gets destroyed, and then the radio's like there's two nuclear explosions in the Middle East, and then the town of a working class town of Sheffield, England, sustains a thermonuclear blast in the upper atmosphere that they witnessed, and up to 30 million die in the initial blast.
So who launched it? Russia launched that at them?
They never say, but it's clearly Russia or Iran, which are kind of like this in the movie. So, and then it goes on for 40 years of what happens after that.
Yeah.
And society 40 years after the nuclear blast. So it's supposed to happen in the early 80s. So it's supposed to be around now when the movie's still going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it'll be like, what time would be
2020,
like now?
2030. It's like the grandkids of them, and they're still they're saying that it's at the level of the population in Europe is about the same as it was in I think they said the Dark Ages.
Ooh, the bubonic.
So 10,000 to 40,000 people. So maybe even before that. Like very, what? Yeah.
So no, we just said it. That'll be par with the smallest human population we know about that ever exists. Only 10,000.
Exactly. So that's what they're saying would be, because all the crops are ruined. You can't. Can't
eat.
Nope, can't eat.
Even the water, radiation poison. The whole
water, crops. All the people have diseases and cancers and stuff like that. And then, so basically, the bomb goes off, kills a ton of people initially, and then the fallout, is obviously the most deadly, and kills even more people, and they can't live and they can't eat. They end up eating rats, eating each other. They don't really show them eating each other, but they eat like farm animals and stealing, and then the government's trying to kill the people who steal, and then but they again can't eat crops because they're all tainted with radioactive materials, and they're just trying to, but they all have radiation burns in every way, shape, and form all over them. And 40 years later, it still is a complete disaster. It is. So I'd have to agree, after watching this, nuclear war, which this is obviously about, is terrifying, and it's the most it makes you the most angry if that is how this went down, because it's the result of a couple of men making bad decisions based off of their egos and their emotions.
Right. Yeah, it's just a small number of people get to choose the fate of the entire
world. Yep.
Yeah, entire world, really. Yeah, because it wouldn't just affect humans. Yeah, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Especially coming off the heels of our nuclear fission and fusion episode, that totally makes sense that they go out that way.
Really bad that would happen. That this is, they're detonated over society, and this is the result of it, and it's really, really bad. The movie's very hard to watch.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
I had to watch it.
It almost seems like a futuristic, like demonic premonition. Like someday people open up this book of demons that you shouldn't open. It's not allowed for men. Only God can look. And you open it up, and then everyone starts melting their faces, and all the crops fail, and people are dying. We don't know why. Like the idea of nuclear annihilation could be in the Bible or in Hindu text. Like it fits right in with what Armageddon would look like if someone predicted
Fire.
it.
Exactly. And the reason it's called threads is so important to all the other forms of how the world might end is because our society is our civilization in 2020 is so powerful because it's so intertwined. This resource depends on this resource depends on so on and so forth. So they have everything from like food production to waste disposal to transportation to literally everything combined all the way through the threads of the earth itself, where a nuclear bomb obliterates if you detonates in the upper atmosphere too many times, the ozone layer gets destroyed, so the sun's more powerful now. So the threads are all intertwined all the way up through to space. And if you disrupt that, this is what you get, and everyone dies. So that's a really bad way for this to end. And I don't think that's how it's going to go down. We've had so many close calls throughout the Cold War, and even recently with Iran and North Korea, where I think that there's powers to be, even aliens. There's been accounts at ballistic missile sites where there are videos of orbs going around intercontinental ballistic missiles that disables them.
Finding with the launch codes, folks. They can't hack our computers. They can only travel through space.
Well, they might be able to do all that, or just block it because they know that this is not something you want to do. Don't launch those. You launch one, the whole world ends. If the U.S. launched one out of their bases in North Dakota and Oklahoma and Vermont, then the world's over because everybody has countermeasures. It's not good. Don't do it.
The most famous story I heard is that that Russian nuclear site engineer he got the call to say launch the nukes, and he was supposed to just enact it without questioning the orders because of the fact that you have to do the initial strike. We talked about last week that the mutually assured destruction, got to launch them as soon as you hear the call. He thought that it might have been a mistake, and so he went against his orders, and he declined to launch the nukes. And it turned out it was just a glitch. It was incorrect siren, but that's how close we came in that moment to that happening. So it seems pretty plausible to me that could happen another time.
Where this guy would go to jail. He would go to jail if he disobeyed those orders, and he did, because he said, this doesn't seem right. I know that there's no way I could be wrong, but I think I'm wrong. Or I think there's no way this could be wrong, but I think it's wrong. That's how close this came.
I'm glad he had that fortitude of character, but I don't think
that's
civilization insane. And life as we know it should ever be, pinned on the fact that one guy is going to, be courageous enough to go against the stream at that point. I mean, I'm happy, and everyone should be that guy made a decision, because we probably wouldn't be talking on Zoom right now if he decided to launch that thing.
Yeah, which makes you think there's no reason to have if no one had nuclear weapons, then we're good. Then the world will never end that way. Yeah,
it couldn't end that way. But I wish the aliens would have come in that day and let him know that he made the right move. But instead, they weren't there that day.
Yeah. So Joe, what else could happen?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we've been going off for a while now. Let's wrap it up now. How do we think the world's going to end? How do we think? Because I've been relishing in the idea of saying everyone's wrong about stuff, which I love doing that because I think I'm so fucking smart, even though I don't know anything. I like to act like I know shit in the past and say, yo, you were wrong about that. I do that to myself. It would be a lot easier. Anyways, what I think the world's going to end like could be any number of things. Do you want me to say how I think it's going to end, and then you say what you think?
Sure. Yeah. Why not? Yeah. Or like maybe top two or whatever you're thinking about, like what's most likely to happen. We got all sorts of things that could happen.
All right. Well, I think that inevitably, unfortunately for all of us, the world as we know it, how we define it today, will end for sure. I mean, in 5 billion years from now, it's irrefutable from what we understand about how stars work. our sun will become a red giant. As it runs out of its hydrogen fuel in its core, it'll start to burn heavier and heavier elements, and it'll expand. And when the sun goes into its form of being a red giant, it will be large enough to consume Mercury, Venus, and Earth. So no matter what we do, in 5 billion years, we will be part of the sun. So we're going to hope that we get off the planet by then, or that'll be the end of the world. The sun will literally grow into us, and that'll be that. That's it. You're done. 5 billion years is an easy mark to make it out of. If we make it out of there in 22 billion years, people are predicting that the universe is going to have some kind of bounce back. I mean, the idea that space-time is expanding at such a fast rate, it's a weird scientific fact. Usually when things expand, they expand at a normal rate based on where they go out from. The Big Bang, for example, you have a bang, that's how far it goes, it's over. The strange part about our universe is as it expands, it goes faster and faster and faster, which doesn't make any sense. It's not getting any more force in it, but somehow the longer it goes out, the faster it goes, so that at some point, they're predicting, the way the universe works now, that space will expand farther than light can travel, meaning that the speed of light will be eclipsed by the speed of the universe expanding, which means that one day it'll be so spaced out that gravity will become stronger because space is just flying out without. So another way it could go, the whole universe rather, could collapse in on itself as gravity becomes the strongest force and space flies out. And people think that could be like how the Big Bang started. All the matter crashing together in a giant explosion and blows up again, which is part of that cyclical nature we talked about, the Ouroboros. A lot of scientists believe the universe might just exist that way. Constantly Big Bang, expansion to the end of things before it collapses again, and the constant collapse and expansion of it as it keeps existing over and over and over again. Even if that doesn't happen, and it just keeps expanding as it was, in about a couple trillion years, it's going to be so spread out, like Andrew said last week, entropy will rule the system, and it'll be ice cold over the whole universe. No matter what we do, any technology we come up with, any energy substances, hyperspace travel, civilizations, stage 5 civilization, whatever you think, at that point, there will be no energy left in the system, and any civilization, any life, even atoms will cease to exist in the universe because it'll be so spread out, you couldn't find an atom between a light year. And that'll be it. End of the universe. It's coming.
I don't think I could doubt what you just said in any way, and that's along the lines of, I don't think that these acute problems that the world has had over the past 40,000 years that humans have been here are anything that's going to totally destroy the planet, specifically just the planet. Again,
oh yeah,
plague.
To be clear, so I can pass it off to you. The world, as we know, is going to end for humans. Either it's the nuclear annihilation of us. I hope it's not that, but I think it'll more likely be us destroying the environment, global warming, pollution. We'll wait too long. We'll destroy the planet. It'll be like a shell of its former self, and then we'll have to deal with it that way. I think Armageddon, as we know it as humans, will be because of us. I mean, that's just what's happen. If not that, then the Earth is going to clean itself out.
I think that there's something more to humans, that we're not going to kill ourselves in the way that Threads did, or that global, contributing to global warming with greenhouse gases and pollution. I don't think it's going to happen, nor war. Why
not? Is it more hopeful? I mean, we haven't done it yet, but we have done a lot that could have contributed to that.
If it was going to happen, it would have happened during the Cold War. I'm a firm believer in that. Things are fucked up right now, but I think that...
You're talking about nuclear annihilation, right? Because we're still continuing to make the world less and less inhabitable for our future selves.
Nuclear annihilation, I think we are past that point of that happening.
Technologically,
and then educationally wise, I think that we are... the world's superpowers are understanding that whether the news or the media makes it play out like China is going to just do it all of a sudden and take over, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't. So I think everyone's too smart. We've learned enough from history where there's a constant threat. It's terrifying. It might happen. North Korea doesn't have the capabilities to do so. And even then, it's still not going to benefit them.
You don't think that there's a chance that humanity could make this Earth uninhabitable? I mean, we talked about it before. The first major extinction event happened because the world, they believe, got so hot that most species couldn't survive on it. volcanoes erupting all over the planet, creating a greenhouse effect that was more severe than even fossil fuels could do. And it got it done, and most species died. I don't see that that's so out of the question we could do that. I mean, we're currently doing it, and we're not making any changes otherwise. So why don't you think that we could end the world as we know it?
Well, that's a good point, because I do. If we keep it up at this rate, it will be a problem. But I think that the advancements in technology are going to just make it on the cusp of time, based off of what we're seeing with people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and other major players who have the money to make a difference. I don't think they're going to let it happen. And then again, it's very easy to change society if you make it affordable. So if again, we could have been battery powered cars 100 years ago, but it was cheaper to run gas. Now we're seeing that battery power saves you money on a small term, all the way down to the individual person. If they charge their Tesla at night at their house, if they have the money to buy one in the first place, but eventually those prices are going to go down. It's all going to make sense. We're going to make it probably just in the cusp of time before it's not reversible. But I just don't. I think that our lives are going to be our biggest threat to me and you for the next 80, 70 years or whatever it is going to be plagues.
Interesting thought. Now, before I let you go on, what makes you think that might be why we go? You're seeming a lot like Nostradamus right now, my brother. You're seeming like this is the thing that's happening right now that's so in front of our faces. The same way people were in 1967 were saying it's going to be nukes and the plague, it's going to be God killing us. And then now you're claiming it'll probably be a pandemic that kills us. Now, why would you think that? Are you living during that? And it seems like the most likely explanation. You let me laugh? Really?
That's a great point, Joe. We happen to be living through one at the moment. And it's one that is, has a 5% mortality rate, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's millions of people. I mean, it's a lot of people, but it could be a lot worse.
Stand in a room full of people at a bar and 5 of you die. That's a fucking huge number.
It is, but it's not the Black Plague numbers, which is like 50%, or Ebola, which is 80%.
Very good point.
And the reason that this one is the perfect number to kill a large amount of people is because it doesn't kill a large amount of people in the bigger skin of things.
So just kill everybody, you can't spread.
Ebola doesn't spread that great because it kills you so the symptoms are so quick and it kills you so fast. Like it's not like it draws itself out. This is the best example to do that. But if we got one that had the same terms but also was like deadly to people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, like the Spanish flu in 1920 or 1918, whenever it started, we'd have a real problem. Like we have a real problem. But can you imagine if it was actually like it was a 30% one, or even a 10 or a 15, 20, 25?
There's like a sweet spot there from how much it can spread by how much people it can kill and how deadly it is worldwide.
Yeah. And they know those exist. So that's just the death of humans. But the death of the Earth itself, I mean, yeah, it could be an asteroid again, but that wouldn't blow up the Earth. It would just cause an ice age for another 40,000 years, but it wouldn't kill the Earth. But as far as things go,
40,000 years, it's been around for 4.8 billion. That's a fucking drop in the bucket.
Nothing. Yeah, humans. 40,000 years of humans being here is like a millisecond in the time of the Earth. It's
seriously nothing. Go pour a glass of water, put it in your freezer, take it out and thaw it out. That's an ice age on Earth. And you just had another 24 hours in your life. That's what ice ages are.
Nothing. Exactly. So humans are definitely the most threat to their own lives. But as far as the Earth's life go, the Earth has always proven to recover, even after the worst of things, which is an asteroid hitting, which is like 10 bajillion million zillion nuclear bombs. Don't forget, guys, it still causes radioactive fallout because particles from space get ionized because there's no atmosphere on the way to Earth. So there still is radioactive fallout from an asteroid hitting. And that was an example of something.
And our magnetosphere saves us from it. But in outer space, you are constantly being bombarded with radioactive rays. That's why part of the astronaut suits isn't just protect them from the elements of outer space. It's the constant radiation from space. If you went out there, it'd be like jumping in an X-ray and having them fired off 100 times in a row every second. I mean, you'd be dead.
We'll be
And
fucked.
like you just said, bring her with you.
Not good. So as far as like the Earth actually blowing up, I don't think that there's any near threat to that. I think that you're very right that if you look at the long term based off of the experts, what they're
Mhm.
saying, I think is probably realistic that this is a trillion something years away of the Earth basically the sun absorbing the Earth eventually and just
5
taking out its
billion.
mass.
It's only 5 billion. Not that long.
Oh,
I
5
mean,
billion. Okay.
the universe is going to end way after Earth is gone, as far as scientists know. But they think that 5 billion years from now, the Earth will be swallowed up by the sun, will be a red giant. But the good news is the Earth isn't even 5 billion years old yet, so it's like we're hitting the midlife crisis here. It's not that bad.
Yeah, pretty much actually. Yeah. So that's kind of it. I mean, as far as the Earth ending, we have a lot of threats, a lot of problems. But overall, Einstein's one of the people in the world who really distinguished your outlook on it, and you can either think it's all out to get you or all out to be good. And I think in our lifetime, it's mostly going to be good. Um, there's definitely going to be more epidemics for sure. But
Yes.
hopefully the world has learned in the most recent terms of things where we have technology mixed with an epidemic, what to do and what not to do.
Mm. Mm.
Um, the biggest threat to again to us, the U.S. is people taking different sides of a particular issue, and that's why it became a real big problem. Um, but moving forward, I don't think the world's going to blow up like I did 10 years ago or 8 years ago. I really did think that it was just going to implode a black hole. Something's going to show up and suck us in, and
Mhm.
or another, or a comet's going to hit, or something crazy is going to happen.
A cataclysm.
Catastrophe, total apocalypse, fire and brimstone.
Classic world.
Classic. I'm not
Fire
buying it in our
fall from
lifetime.
the sky and they land on your house, and you have to run between the fire and the demons to make it home. That's the classic
Yeah,
version.
I'm not buying it in our lifetime. I just don't think so. Based off of what we know about what this planet has gone through over the past millions of years, billions of years.
Yeah.
There could be an extinction event, and we
Right.
would know, and we hope it's not a nuclear war because that's not good. But overall, that wasn't even in this movie Threads. That wasn't an extinction event. It just killed most people.
Right. Even people still survive. Never mind 70%
Yeah.
of all species on the planet.
Yeah, people are quite resilient, and the human body is incredibly resilient.
Mm.
And somehow, some way, people will get through it.
I think that wraps it up for me, man. I mean, you just said it perfectly. Like, there's so many ways that life on Earth can end and has ended, and there's so many ways that could go poorly in the future. But luckily, we live in a time where it's not ended. We live in a time where there is a major pandemic going on. We're making do. It sucks. It's awful, but we can still go through it. And I think that there is an insane amount of hubris in thinking that you are going to be the one who lives through the end of the world. I mean, obviously, you get to do that almighty "I told you so," and you get to live through the worst time in life on Earth, the end of life. But I think the idea that we are going to live through that is just so self-centered and narcissistic. It's fucking stupid. Like, you're not going to be the one. And if you are the one, you can tell me the big "I told you so" in the grave. We're both there rotting.
Yeah, and you get to be one of the few people in this world who actually lived through history in like a real way. Like, example, if War of the Worlds happens,
you're immediately
1954, War of the Worlds, a bunch of alien probes were buried here millions of years ago, and they came to life and to harvest specifically your blood. So you get sucked up by a vacuum cleaner, alien thing, that puts you in a blender and turns you into protein for them to live. That could happen. I can't say I have nothing to say that doesn't happen.
That actually hits all the points we talked about in our podcast, which is that initial idea that you want to be part of something bigger than yourself, you want to be more important, which I totally relate to. I'm not trying to talk down to people, but the idea that I'm the one who was here when the aliens landed. I'm the one who lived through the actual apocalypse. I was here when stuff was important. I was here. It's the most human thing you can think of. It's the same as painting the hands on the walls or the hieroglyphics. It's just, I was here. Please believe me that I was here at some point, because I've been born, I lived, and I'm going to die, and everyone's going to fucking forget about me. But please, I was here. Please notice me. Please notice me. It's just, that's what it all looks like to me.
That's exactly it, Joe. And that's it for today, folks. That was the Dylan and Joe Basement Podcast. We love to speculate on what the end of the world is going to be, if in our timeline, or if in the future. We don't know, but that's what we know as Dylan and Joe. So Merry holidays to everyone. Happy New Year. We'll be with you guys next week, which is the I don't know, but
Hey, next time we talk to you, it'll be 2021. It'll be the new year. Thanks for hanging with us this year. We'll see you next year. Hopefully,
see you next year, guys.
I'll be eating my words.
That's right, guys. We love you all. Thanks. So
I don't know what you should watch. I don't know. Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh, you heard that?
Yeah, I put it in the video. Nick Cage, baby.
For end of the world and different religions. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I'm Con Air or Elf. I don't pick one. Two very different movies. Way before time, Con Air, Elf, or Apocalypse Now. Pick one.
We have a very Mickey Christmas. We have a Clockwork Orange. I mean, go ahead. Just fucking pick one.
Just fucking, what do you think I am? No one really knows. But we do know a couple things.
That's it. To move away a little bit from that. To move away a little from that, rather.
What to do and what not to do. So yeah, Joe, that was a good one.
Good job, man. Way to wrap it up. Sorry I was going off my fucking psycho tangents and shit, but I just gotta get the passion.